We now turn our attention to the next segment of today's event, a panel discussion on the AI shift and what that means for legal practice. This session brings together respected voices in the Malaysian and Singaporean legal and tech communities to explore the evolving role of artificial intelligence in legal practice, research, and decision-making. Our distinguished panelists will share their insights on how AI is reshaping the legal landscape, the opportunities it presents, and the ethical considerations that must guide its adoption. Moderating today's discussion is our own head of marketing, Chloe Wong, who will be guiding the conversation through key themes such as trust, transformation, and the future of legal intelligence. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage.
Good afternoon, and welcome to today's panel on the AI shift. What does it mean for legal practice today and future? We are living through a transformative moment. Artificial intelligence is reshaping how business operates, how lawyers advise clients, and how firms and in-house teams deliver value. Today, we're joined by an excellent panel of thought leaders and practitioners who will share perspective on where we are now, the opportunities and risks ahead, and what this means for the future of legal practice. Before we dive into our discussion, let me first introduce our distinguished panelists. We have an exciting mix of speakers dialing in from Singapore, as well as those joining us here in person in Malaysia. So from Singapore, Serena Foong is the Deputy Head of Legal Affairs ASEAN at Microsoft and an SG 100 Woman in Tech honoree, a tri-qualified lawyer with over a decade of global experience. She has led award-winning teams and pioneered AI-driven solutions for clients and businesses. Leon Lim is a partner at TSMP Law Corporations, specializing in capital markets and merger and acquisition. Recognized as one of Singapore's 30 most influential lawyers under 40, he also leads his firm's digital and AI transformation initiatives and serves as a non-executive director of a listed company. Here with us from Malaysia, we have Serene Khan. She heads the technology practice group at Wong and Partners, a member firm of Baker McKinsey. She advises on complex tech and media transactions, data privacy, cybersecurity, and e-commerce across multiple industries, guiding multinationals through compliance and data-related challenges. Yi-Ching Loh is the managing partner of Qing Chambers, with offices in Malaysia, Singapore, and the UK, recognized in the LexisNexis 40 under 40 and Multi-Managing Partner Awards. She has integrated AI to streamline workflows and position her firm as a finalist for Regional Innovation and ESG Awards. And last but not least, Deepak Pillai leads the TMT and data protection practice at Christopher and Lee Ong. Ranked Band 1 by Chambers Asia Pacific and named among Asia's top 15 TMT lawyers, he has shaped Malaysia's digital legislation, advised on cross-border transactional for tech, and continues to influence policies at the highest level. So please join me in welcoming all our distinguished panelists. With that, let's begin with our first section, the current state of AI in business and legal practice. Serene, let's start with you. Business everywhere are experimenting with AI. From your vantage point, What are your views on the rise of AI in business? What are the trends you're seeing in your clients' adoption? And how is your firm itself experimenting or integrating AI tools?
Thank you for that. First off, I really wanted to thank LexisNexis for inviting me here. I think I'm in the company of a lot of great judges, lawyers, and practitioners. So I think what you would perhaps empathize that, I'll start off with a bit of caveats. The first caveat would be that these are views of my own and through my lens as a practitioner in this space. So perhaps in order to respond to your query, I will walk you through a little bit of an evolution of the questions that have come to us in the technology practice at Wong and Partners. If you look back to early 2003, just as, November 22, ChatGPT came out, everybody was really just so excited about it. The questions that we started getting asked was like, Serene, what is this? What are the risks to us as an organization if I allow my employees to use this, right? We had a lot of that kind of questions about what frameworks should I put in place from an employee perspective, from a technology perspective, from an ethics perspective, right? Then you come down to 2024, the questions became very different. It'll be, Serene, we are engaging tools, some of which have AI, some of which in the future will embed AI. What do we do, right? Are there any contractual risk mitigation clauses that we can put in place, in addition to the AI governance frameworks that we already have? So, and then come down to 2025, it becomes, Serene, we have done all this, what else should we be looking at in the future? So as I paint you that picture, you can perhaps understand where the lay of the land for the business who is looking to adopt AI. Essentially, there was a lot of fear, concern about the unknown. Then it became a very practical mindset, risk mitigation, and then looking down to the future. And that's where I see a lot of businesses go. They feel that the AI wave is inevitable. To not jump on that bandwagon is essentially risking essentially lost opportunity, both in terms of efficiency and as well as marketing their products. Coming back to Wong and Partners, I think the initial stages, we were very, very similar to a lot of other organizations, especially because we also have a global firm, which mandates, guys, we cannot use ChatGPT, we cannot use the large language models, we cannot use anything. So our first reaction to this wave was, no employee can actually access large language models through our servers. So essentially, if you're at work, you cannot actually go on your work computer and you essentially ask a large language model, what can I do with this? But eventually, we started, like very many other organizations as well, appreciating the risk, seeing how we can ring fence those risks, and slowly, I think, what we did was we ensured there was sufficient education amongst not just our lawyers, not just the partners, but also our support staff. Because again, we recognize that the use of Gen AI has tremendous benefits. And we see it today. Fast forward, it's been about a year since, and the tools that we've been using have continuously been upgraded, right? But mainly the focus has always been productivity enhancements. How can I simplify the thousands of emails in my inbox to give me a list after a long day of full of meetings? You start your meeting at 9, you come back at 6. How do you then look at your emails and say, okay, give me the top 5 emails that I need to urgently look at because it's way past its due date or due timeline, right? So that's where we are. But I think in the future, as a law firm, personally, I feel we need to, and it's coming from the perspective of Wong and Partners, that ultimately, as lawyers, we all each have a very different way of advising clients. We have a different voice. We look at things very differently from other law firms because it's, I guess it's just because we do certain things a different way. It's about enhancing that voice using existing knowledge repositories that we have and perhaps creating our own model to further enhance our productivity and efficiency.
Speaking of risk, Deepak, with new opportunities always comes new risk. From your perspective, What do you see as the biggest risks and challenges lawyers should be mindful when considering AI? And how do you think this challenge changes the way lawyers learn and work in practice?
Thank you for the question. And once again, to repeat Serene's greeting to you, thank you for joining us here today, and I'm honored to be in your presence. So in relation to what Serene just said, it looks like you are very much more advanced than Christopher and Wong, at least in terms of adopting AI. We take a conservative position. We wait until the die is sort of cast and then we go in. So anyway, that happens to be our approach. So anyway, coming back to the question, make no mistake, in spite of what I'm going to say, AI is a brilliant tool that needs to be and will be embraced by all lawyers in due course. To my mind, AI is a disruptor that in this round will upset the knowledge sector, which includes professionals like lawyers. This is no different from other disruptions that have been suffered over generations due to advances in technology. I'll give you a few examples. Advent of widespread electricity, which replaced the candle makers and the lighters of lights in old cities, the emergence and domination of ATMs, the disruption to the newspaper industry by the internet, disruption of the advertising market caused by Google, the content sector by YouTube, taxis by Grab, and then Grab Bank as well. So in each case, the sector has dealt with the change. There are those companies that have died, there are those companies that have adapted, and the rest have moved on. So this is nothing out of the ordinary. This is in fact our turn to unfortunately deal with this particular change. So coming back to the question at hand, the major risk faced by lawyers, what is it? It is that we do not recognize what AI for what it is, which is technically it is a large language model where the results are based on a statistical probability model. But in reality, in everyday experience, it's like dealing with a smooth-talking first-year lawyer with perfect English, right? That's how the experience is. But then, unfortunately, this lawyer also gets things wrong, and even worse, he creates stuff up, not out of ill intent, but more to please you by giving you what you think, you need, right? So, example, one personal example, the first time I came across the hallucination, as they call it, I was looking up for a particular concept in the Communications and Multimedia Act. I asked ChatGPT, is this concept present in the CMA? Yes, it is. Which section? Okay, part 12, section XXX. So then, being the careful lawyer that I am, I looked at the CMA. The CMA ends at part 11. Yeah. It was a hallucination. I tried 2-3 more times. I did not get any better answers. So very simply, the main challenge is blind reliance or over-reliance on AI. So where does that over-reliance come in? It's as a consequence of being unaware and or untrained in the use of AI, right? So this could lead to embarrassing cases such as the first case that we heard of generally was Mata versus Avianca Inc., a case in New York about an airline and a personal injury case where bogus cases were advanced to the courts and the lawyer was censured. And now you say, how many 400 cases? Gayatri, I think, mentioned that just now. But I think that is probably not the worst thing that is being done by AI. I view it, so this is the glass half empty viewpoint. I think the threat is more insidious, more dangerous, which maybe in the long term, it will result in the weakening of the core of us being lawyers. Basically what I mean is it is a threat to our ability to research and craft our opinions. I think crafting opinions is the essence of what a lawyer does. You start with the first sentence, you construct the first paragraph, you close the second paragraph, and then the whole idea is to get to a point where you're actually communicating what you want to say to the client. And you have communicated that, you have built that structure. So if you had built the structure piece by piece, you would know how to answer a question, whether from your partner, whether from your client, whether from the counterparty as to why it's that way. But if you had relied on AI, you would not. So essentially, over-reliance, overuse of AI threatens us from being authors of our own pieces of work to being editors of AI's work. If there's one thing that you take from me today in this session, that is the thing that you need to bear in mind. Threatens to basically reduce us from being authors of our works to editors of someone else's work, right? So practically speaking, AI is like any other tool, like a car or a gun, right? So when neither should be used without training, would you let your loved one drive a car or handle a gun if it was legal in Malaysia without training? So I think the answer is definitely no across the board. The use of AI requires training. AI, if used without awareness and the necessary training, is likely to potentially harm the organization, the lawyer, or even worse, the client. And that is what is happening today, where unless there is a policy in place which is strictly enforced, everyone is using AI the way they want to. And it's dangerous. I would say that, anyway, switching from a glass half empty to glass half full perspective, I would say that with training and awareness, with the necessary safeguards built in, AI can make us much more effective as lawyers. We can pick up new subjects and areas much faster and much faster than normal. I mean, I would say it takes 10% of the time that it would normally take, because we are expected to be able to answer questions for new areas as well, right? It will generate minutes speedily. Get off the phone, generate minutes, send it off. Don't have to wait a day for the lawyers to come back to you. It'll summarize voluminous amounts of documents quicker and perhaps more effectively, come up with first drafts of simple letters and standard documents fast and with minimum of fuss. So in a nutshell, AI can be used like you would use a smooth-talking first-year lawyer with perfect English, but you should be jaundiced, right? You should look at it with a jaundiced eye, deal with the input coming to you with a healthy dose of caution and perhaps hope as well. So once again, to emphasize the point, letting anyone use AI without training, without awareness, is akin to handing them a loaded gun which can harm the person, the organization, and the client.
Thank you. I think we should all start training as soon as possible so that we're all learning how to use AI. And we'll come to the policies later. I think we will have a panelist who can speak a little bit more about that. But before we go into that, maybe I'll just move to Qing. As someone who is running a smaller size firm, you may approach technology differently. From your perspective, what does AI bring to the table for firms of your size? And how does this change the way you think about scaling your practice?
Thank you, Chloe. And really want to thank LexisNexis to have me here together with my fellow panelists. So moving to Chloe's question is that on how a smaller size firm like us, how can we actually use AI to our advantage? I will share a story on how actually in Qing Chambers that we are currently actually using an AI software that can assist us to detect multi-jurisdictional change in their regulatory policy and their rules and regulations. So when we have this software that is running, it is easy for us to companies, let's say they want to establish a company in Singapore or in the UK or even in the Dubai. We actually have this software, they actually have this regulatory that is set there, and then we can advise our client on what to do. And very quickly, without even spending very much time to even look at it one by one again. And this actually helped us to actually help many companies to incorporate their companies in Malaysia and also outside. So that is what one thing that we are using in our corporate department. But for like litigation, what we do is that currently we are using this LexisNexis, and we search for the case number of the case, and then we go and look for the cost paper, and that is where we do not copy and paste the cost paper, like for a case. But here we are going to use our AI to prompt, to ask questions. Okay, look at this cost paper. What is missing here? How can I further cross my witnesses better during my re-examination, cross-examination and re-examination? So AI in our firm we are using it both in litigation as well as in corporate. And it's been very helpful. And moving to how it helps us to scale is that we are using lesser time and also lesser, I would say, the human oversight is still needed. However, because of technology, smaller firms like us, we will have to hire more people if we were to do that on a regular traditional basis, right? But because of the technology, time has been shortened, and the turnaround time for us to get answers and to get back to our client effectively via email is actually very much faster on how we're going to draft our email to advise our client on what are the next steps to do. So this has been really helpful for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Yi-Jing. Now I'm going to move on to our virtual panelists. I'm going to move to Leon. Adoption is always a cultural challenge. Could you share how do you promote and facilitate AI adoption across your firm? And do you notice a difference in how leadership views AI versus the rest of the firm?
Sure. Hello from Singapore, everybody. It's a gloomy, rainy day here. Hopefully the weather in KL is better, but very happy to be here this afternoon. Thank you, Lexis, for having me. Maybe just by way of background, I'm a partner in the capital markets team in TSMP, a law firm in Singapore. Maybe just to get you a sense of what we are about 80 lawyers today. And I was part of the committee that rolled out AI firm-wide. We are just starting our journey with AI. So we were aware that, as all the other panelists have highlighted, there's a lot of risks involved in rolling this out. And our plan from the first day was to roll it out firm-wide. We did, of course, think about how that will impact the development of our junior lawyers. So we actually kicked it off with a 6-month pilot period where we tested various products. We finally landed on one which we launched firm-wide a couple of months ago. The results were very promising. I think we are expecting increase in productivity by 20 to 30%. But that also caused us to pause and to think what the role of a lawyer is and and how we train our people to prepare them for this new world. We believe that AI, at the pace that it's improving, will only continue to get better. We believe that it takes out a lot of the grunt work that typically we would give to the most juniors of lawyers. So then the management and the partnership decided to embark on this very aggressive training regime. We call it our TSMP Academy, where on top of the usual top-down learning training, we also introduced other holistic skills, some executive coaching, pitch skills, negotiation trainings. We roll it out firm-wide to all the junior lawyers, and we tell them that these are really the skills that you will be valued for in the future, because with the pace that technology is improving now, all these junior lawyer level skills will be sooner or later replaced. There was even a conversation about whether or not we should stop hiring juniors altogether, because every year, as I'm sure it is the case in Malaysia, the Singapore law firms take a big batch of fresh graduates from the universities. But I don't think in good conscience we could do that. We wanted to continue to support the legal ecosystem. We wanted to continue to support the universities. So it was a commitment to training. So we developed this mantra, this training. We're trying to model ourselves into a training law firm, like a training hospital, where every partner is committed to trainings. We made teams smaller. We are trying to encourage Socratic methods in the way we train our people. And of course, this takes up a lot of time and effort. So we've engaged external consultants also as to how we should change the way we practice law and change the way we deal with our people. Yeah, so that's how we are rolling out. We're still very early on in the journey, but so far the pickup rate has been quite promising. We're very fortunate in the sense that this was really a top-down effort. This was pushed through management because someone encountered a study which showed that lawyers that leveraged on AI consistently outperformed lawyers who didn't. So we were very fortunate that that we had a buy-in from management from the start. Now it's about rolling it out firm-wide. We see that the younger lawyers really latch onto it pretty quickly, I think, by virtue of them being more malleable and tech-savvy. It's the more senior experienced lawyers who have a lot of I wouldn't say resistance, it's just that they don't really have a need because perhaps they don't do so much of the grunt work. So I thought something that has been helpful is us having regular sync meetings with whether it's department-wide or firm-wide to update everybody on use cases. And I also mentioned that we've engaged external consultants. So we are working with these consultants together with our tech vendors to develop use cases, to develop workflows, and to develop our vault so that we are able to maximize the utility of the solutions.
Thank you. Let's move to Serena. Serena, you're both a technology and policy perspective. You bring both perspective. In particular, could you walk us through some of the key initiatives by the Singapore government to drive AI adoption in the legal sector? And with the guide for using generative AI in the legal sector in Singapore, I know you were involved in working closely with the government to roll that out. It's a milestone in Singapore. What was the thinking behind it? And what should legal professionals pay attention to in this guide?
Thanks for your questions. So just like the rest of the panelists, I do have the caveat. Anything I say, it's not really on behalf of the government. It's more of the experience that I had when we worked together with the various ministries, Ministry of Law, Singapore Academy of Law, INDA as well. And I think the key priority for Singapore is really to ensure that the various initiatives they had was not meant to overlap. It's a holistic approach where they would combine policy, infrastructure, fundings for smaller law firms, and provide equivalent guidance so that the entire legal profession in Singapore can be empowered digitally. It's not meant to just take away jobs, right? But it's meant to empower them. So topmost, I think the latest that just was rolled out was this guide for generative AI, as you mentioned last month. The final version will be out soon after public consultation is closed. Very, very interestingly, I think what Leon mentioned just now was the thinking behind the ministries, where they thought about not just the guidance, but actually having a pilot itself to support law firms in the digital transformation. So they actually did whatever Leon was saying, right? They did the process mapping. They will help law firms to select solutions itself on board and also train the smaller law firms. So think of it as not just, okay, we just buy a product off the shelf and then we just chuck it back to you, right? They have intensive onboarding, training, and then there's aftercare programs as well. And this is actually the legal innovation pilot that they actually launched earlier this year. The other one that was launched in Tech Law Fest last month was this legal Q&A GPT equivalent for LawNet 4.0. And I think the thinking behind the whole guidance, this LawNet 4.0, the AI in judiciary, everything that was launched is to recognize the fact that we would like our legal profession not to use non-commercial Gen AI tools. So like Deepak mentioned, he push it through ChatGPT. And that's one example where it's very risky to push it through non-commercial legal tech tools, because the commercial tech tools out there are the ones that provide this kind of safety nets, the security provisions and the assurance, the data privacy provisions behind it, the responsible AI analysis that was done. And these are the things that actually makes the difference, because as a whole, the Chief Justice made this comment to Singapore Academy of Law, and it was also publicly announced, which is why I can say this, it's not just to empower us, so top down, regardless of age, but to ensure that rather than turning to a non-commercial use tool, which may be the outcome, they would like to encourage people to move to the commercial tool so that everybody will be able to reduce the risk that my panelists have already said. So that's the thinking behind the various initiatives, and specifically to the Gen AI guide itself. They thought about who actually really needs the most, and it'll be like people like Yi-Ching Chambers, right? The top tier firms, they have tons of resources. They are way advanced already. So this generative AI guidelines is not meant for this, top 5 firms, people like TSMP was really super advanced as well. In fact, it's more for SME clients, SME in-house teams, and firms that really just don't have the resources, because this Gen AI guide is meant to be a plug and play. So it outlines 5 steps. You just need to follow it, from start to end. And basically that's about it. They do the entire work for you so that, as a firm, you wouldn't have time to sit down on it. And I think that's the beauty about it, because they actually solicit feedback from the people that really matters. And so internal policies, rolling it out, you don't even need to think about it. When the final version is out, I think that's the intent, to help the whole legal profession as a whole.
All right. Thank you for your answers. We're moving on to the second section of the panel discussion, where we talk more about the future of AI in business and legal practice. So back to Serene. Let's circle back to you. Beyond practice, there's also the questions of talent. How has the rise of AI influenced your firm's approach to hiring? And what kind of skill sets or mindsets are you now prioritizing on new legal talents?
Thank you for that. And it's interesting how we didn't plan this. I was allocated this question, but it's very apt because I am in our firm's recruitment committee. I think in terms of quantum of pupils that we hire and the quantity of pupils who then get retained to be associates, I don't think that's going to change for us. What will change, however, on a very practical day-to-day level, is that we no longer want to adopt a Zoom or Teams interview. So what we are now doing is that because I don't know if you find this, but I find that when you interview those candidates on Zoom, their eyes, right, it's not on you. It's like, they're up everywhere but you. And you kind of know, right? And therefore, the responses that come out if you ask a very particularly difficult question, you know that they have something somewhere, they're Googling, or, they're asking a large language model, which, may or may not be right? But more importantly, why we're actually moving to a face-to-face interview is this. All the more in the age of Gen AI being used to, I think, help lawyers, and as Deepak aptly mentioned, they are essentially first-year lawyers with perfect English. But in our profession, it's not about just perfect English, looking glassily perfectly nice. It is all the intangibles. It's curiosity, right? You get a problem, it's an onion. How many layers do you peel down to solve the problem? It's about creativity, right? How do you solve a problem in an unusual way, as long as you get to the end goal, what the client wants commercially? And I think what is also, and these are all only going to be very evident if you are able to sit down, have a coffee over in your meeting room, engage them in the conversation about what your passions are, what you want to do in the future, where do you foresee yourself, how do you want to make a difference in the role that you will possibly be in the firm. And I know we always say that as lawyers, we want our lawyers, our associates to be all-rounders, right? I think that that's always been the goal for us, and that will, I think, all the more be the goal for us in the future when essentially you have tools like Gen AI to help with, to a certain extent, the technical bits, but it is these intangibles, i.e., for example, being able to shift between a glass half full and a glass half empty perspective, like Deepak just did, is something that we Deepak and I, everybody else in this room, cultivated through years of practice and interaction with people. And I find that over the years, candidates that have come, in the legal profession, candidates that has come up with perfect academic records may not actually be able to flip between the glass half full perspective or, on a glass half empty perspective and be flexible in their minds to give you that kind of creativity. And these things, I think, are all the more going to be very, very much valued. This human touch, because I don't know about you, emails that come to me in perfect English, with very it feels very glassy. As you can smell and see, it is artificially generated. So I think an individual, I think we're looking for individuals who are dynamic, interesting, and have a personality. I think that is going to really be much more of the focus these days for me.
Thank you. Deepak, looking ahead, what's your perspective on the future of legal practice as AI becomes more deeply integrated into our profession? And how should lawyers protect themselves and their clients while navigating this fast-moving future?
I will answer that question, but after I've addressed some of the points raised by Serene. Okay? So number one, I had an IT person in the firm whose English was awful. Every time I receive emails, I have to figure out what he means. And then suddenly, perfect English. I asked him, how is this possible? AI. And then about graduates and the use of AI. I have someone from one of the premier universities in the UK who is an AI freak, uses AI all the time. I've got a local grad from MU who uses AI, but a bit more reservedly, and you can actually tell whether AI has been used or not. You can see the perfection of the language. There's a sheen on the work that indicates AI has been used, whereas the local grad doesn't use AI or uses it selectively. He doesn't use it as a base of his draft, he uses it more for reference. So you can tell, and I think that basically, number one, we don't have a preference either foreign or local. We use anyone who can do the job, but the use of AI will basically will stunt their growth as lawyers, I would think. And then this thing about doing Zoom interviews, you can tell when their eyes move right to left, right? It's not a teleprompter like the news where it goes up, right, as you read. So when you see that, oh, you're referring to something, you better come in for an interview. Okay, anyway, so back to the question. I think that there can be no doubt that AI is here to stay. For sure, 120%. And in terms of the impact on law firms, the numbers of lawyers required may be reduced. DD teams of 10 may be reduced to 5. So that is one of the possibilities. And in terms of the skill sets we seek from our lawyers, that may change depending on what is the flavor of the month at that particular time. But I can't tell any more than that as to what will happen going forward. Because things are moving too fast, too dynamically, things are coming from right, left, and center. So you cannot predict very much, except that if you go up to a macro perspective, you can say that number one, it'll only grow better. Hallucinations will get fewer and fewer, and there should be many more diverse AI engines and LLM options available in the years ahead. So hopefully we'll see some Malaysian LLMs, we will see some Asian LLMs, because right now all the LLMs are concentrated in the West. And if they decide to pull the plug or raise their prices, well, we've got tough times ahead, right? And as to what the future holds, if you think back to the beginnings of the internet age, 35 years ago, I've been in practice for a long time, when connecting to the internet meant using your landline and dial-up modem to connect to an internet which had yet to see Amazon, yet to see Google, yet to see YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. Can you imagine life without them? And then furthermore, yet to see the advent of services like Lazada, Shopee, Grab Taxi, Grab Bank, etc. So all of these things did not exist. That is exactly where we are today. If you look at, if you use mountaineering as a metaphor, and you think about the Himalayas, we're actually at the foothills, not even at base camp. And it's a mountain to climb, and the top is shrouded by clouds. So we have got no idea where this journey is taking us. But personally, I think that the next major development in the development of AI is its recognition as a person in the eyes of the law. That is going to be a momentous day, but I do not think that that will happen while I am in practice. I'll be retired by then. But I think this is already on the way, and I'm excited by that. So coming back to the here and now, looking slightly ahead as to what can actually be done. Number one, we never let go of the authoring process, as it is the foundation of the practice of law, the writing of opinions, the writing of submissions. That should never be given over to AI. You use AI as a tool. Law firms also, and then moving on to law firms need to revise their letters of engagement to provide for the use of AI and have an outward-looking AI usage policy, a notice where the AI principles or AI strategy is mentioned, just like Raja and Tan have done in Singapore. Law firms need to develop inward-facing policy and operational rules in relation to the adoption and permitted uses of AI. We only use this AI, Harvey. We do not use ChatGPT, right? So that decision must be made by the organization. And then law firms also need to institute training of their staff and lawyers. So I remember a clear, so this was mentioned to my HR partner. Did you see the forms that came in for appraisal in 2023 and the forms that came in 2024, so different. One imperfect English, right? All the secretaries and everyone else. And then in 2024, perfect English, everyone, right? That is ChatGPT at work. Law firms also need to revise their hiring criteria to deal with the variety and extent of exposure to AI that their future hires have had, whether in university, what type of teaching is done at university, and also to lateral hires from other firms. What exposure do you have to AI? So the hiring process is going to get more complicated, I would think. So I can say that AI is here to stay. It needs to be adopted by all of us. There are organizations that need to do it today because their clients are expecting it to today, whereas there are those that are, okay, maybe we can wait for a while. But for law firms that are adopting AI, you need to remain flexible and attentive to the fast-changing landscape while ensuring the core of what we think a lawyer is remains intact. If that is gone, then we are not lawyering anymore. We're just, a chop lah. Yeah. So the core needs to remain, or at least is knowingly adapted to the new reality of AI.
Thank you. Back to Qing. AI also presents opportunities for smaller players to compete. So how do you see AI changing the way you compete with larger firms? And if you were to run your firm differently with AI in mind, what would you do?
Yeah, I think for the first question on how we can compete, how do we compete with larger firms? I think I have 3 points here. Firstly is that now smaller firms, we have access to bigger firm capabilities. For example, traditionally large firms, they had an edge, right? Because they could afford a team of juniors, like a larger team. So yeah, but a boutique, a small firm like us, a boutique firm like us right now, we can produce work of the, I won't say the same quality, but I could say that, we can try to be on par with the larger firms. But of course, we have to always be on our toes on the laws and everything, right? But the outcome, what is generated out, I think we won't deny that is, it's probably like more or less would be the same content, right? So that would be one thing. And secondly, I would say that speed and accuracy is our competitive advantage right now. And I believe what has been demonstrated by the team here is that, the emphasis on the turnaround time, the emphasis on how fast you can get the data, right? So circling back to what I said earlier, when you have a team of like 10 juniors, right, you probably could get the data like much faster, right? But now with AI as a tool, it helps to, I would say, increase that speed when it comes to getting the right information and reading on the right information. I mean, you can be reading hundreds of cases and then nothing hits, right? Whereas if you get the right tool and you search in the right places with the right filters, you would probably, be reading 10 cases and five is on point, So that would actually really, that is my second point. So competitiveness in terms of speed and accuracy. And thirdly, also, I would say that scalability, increase scalability. I wouldn't say without headcount, because we still need the human factor here. We still need people to, they are still lawyers, we are trained in our law school, we have that knowledge within us, right? And AI is just a tool. What is AI actually? They are just artificial intelligence. What they do is that they produce the things that you prompt. Like you put in the detail and they produce it out for you. They probably, they can beautify the language or whatsoever, but the essence comes from you. So that is why when LexisNexis say that, you have your personal style. You may be using the same tool, but when you give your different prompt, how you want your style to be in your draft, it will come up differently, right? So I believe that is, AI don't take away our uniqueness, right? When drafting, right? That's one thing. And how would I run my firm differently? I would say that these days it's more data driven, right? So we use AI to get the data, and then we analyze it, and then we pick the one that we believe is most accurate and is most useful for us, and then we piece them up together, and then we ask AI again, okay, is there any blind spot? Did I miss anything? When I draft my course papers or my cross-examination question, is there anything else that is there any other point that I can come in and add to that question, so that the points will be in our favor when we go to the court, right? That is one thing. And also, I think lastly, my emphasis is that AI is not going to replace us, but it will actually help us to multiply. It's a multiplier, right? If we use it, if we use AI as a tool, right, we won't be afraid of like, oh, we're going to be replaced anytime. But rather than what like Serene and Deepak said earlier, if you train, you train that AI tool to work for you, instead of saying that, oh no, my days are gone and I will be replaced by AI. It wouldn't be, because everybody will have your own uniqueness. Like, even if you put in the same prompt, they come out the same, but when you present it, whoever who presents it, right, it will be different. Different people presents differently. So for example, like, you can have the exact same course papers, and when you go to the court, it's all about your advocacy skills, right? It's all about how you present your case to the judge. Of course, it matters what you write inside, but how are you understanding your case, and how are you going to persuade the judge that, hey, my client is the one that deserves this claim, for example. So I think using AI to our advantage, even as a smaller firm, would actually enhance the quality of work, I would say, and it gives us that advantage, right? That competitiveness in terms of like, we can now like be using the same beautiful languages that, I mean, all this came from someone somewhere back then, right? And our role now, right, is not just to like, we copy and paste whatever that's there. We are here to enhance it, make it better. How can we make this agreement more watertight, so that we can prevent even court cases to happen if that is what we are doing with AI, right? Yeah, I think that is all from me. Thank you very much, Chloe.
Thank you, Yi-Ching. Okay, so just final two more questions for our virtual panelists. So Leon, back to adoption challenges, because your firm is well ahead of, in terms of adoption, and you're looking at change management already. So how do you ensure that your team is equipped to work effectively alongside AI tools in the future? And what cultural or mindset shifts do you need to manage within the firm?
Sure. So on the first question, very quickly, because I'm conscious that we are running over, I mentioned it's two aspects, right? I mentioned earlier that we double down on training. So that's really to answer the first question of how do we reduce the risk of AI usage and reduce hallucinations. So how we think at the firm that we can reduce this risk is by ensuring that we train our people well. We train our people to think based on principles, right? So that has, and I spoke about it earlier about how we are trying to increase training for critical thinking, changing the way we interact with juniors. Hopefully, it will help them when they look at something that AI has generated. They can look at it and say, "Hey, that's not right," because they've actually exercised this critical thinking muscle, and they're able to call it out, right? And the second thing is usage of the tool itself. So this one, we've also had an external vendor come in to try and look at our workflows and to see how the tool can be better modified and better customized to suit our particular use cases. So that's the first question. The second one, in terms of adoption, I mentioned earlier that the more senior partners are a little bit slow, lagging behind compared to the juniors. So one thing I'm trying very hard to do with them is to remind them of the utility of the tool. So it's not just in the day-to-day legal work. It's not just in the drafting of the contracts on the legal research. It's, as a partner, you also have a lot of admin work that you need to do, right? For example, I just came back from Mumbai and I had to write a trip report based on the people that I met in Mumbai. I leveraged AI on doing it. Another example is LexisNexis asked me for a short description. I fed my CV into the tool and I said, I'm speaking at this conference, this is the target audience. Can you come up with a 150-word paragraph describing my experience so that the audience can get a sense of me? So there are all these small things that we can use AI to leverage on and to be quicker and to increase productivity. So I try to make that clear to the more senior partners to try to get their buy-in and say, oh yeah, I've just come back from Korea. I've been sitting on my trip report. Maybe I can give that a try. So that's how I'm hoping to drive change in the more senior practitioners.
All right. Thank you. Last but not least, Serena, you besides the policy, you're also an in-house counsel. So as AI becomes embedded in corporate operations, what skill sets do you believe are becoming essential for in-house legal teams? And how should in-house teams prepare today to stay ahead of the curve?
Thanks. Two words, I think growth mindset. And growth mindset is a key principle which underpins almost everything, whether it's innovation and looking beyond what you can do beyond just pure use cases. And growth mindset was a principle articulated in my previous workplace, which was a joint venture between Accenture and Microsoft, and even here in Microsoft as well. So thinking beyond silo use cases, growth mindset is the one that will help us go beyond just thinking, oh, it's just for drafting or it's just for summarization. And there's so many things out there that Microsoft pushes out there for the entire legal profession to really understand how we can actually tap onto commercial GenAI use case. The other key factor that was underpinned in the generative AI guidelines is our professional responsibility as lawyers, right? I know everybody talks about all the risks and hallucination, but fundamentally, that's our main purpose as lawyers, right? We're supposed to be checking, we're supposed to be basically taking accountability and ownership of the work we do. So I think these two key things, we can take us very far, and we don't need to deep dive into those. So thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you. Thank you for all your insights. Today we've heard that AI is no longer just a buzzword. It's transforming how we practice law, how firms compete, how we train the next generation of lawyers, and how in-house counsels prepare for the future. As our panelists highlighted, the AI shift is not about replacing lawyers, but about empowering them to work smarter, manage risk better, and deliver greater value to clients. On that note, let me thank our panelists once again, Serene, Serena, Leon, Qing, and Deepak for sharing your expertise. And thank you all for being an engaged audience. Thank you.